Hello again. Now, President Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa will wrap up his tour of the United Kingdom today. King Charles III and Queen Consort Camilla will bid a formal farewell to Ramaphosa this evening. The president's visit is sought to bolster Britain's relations with its biggest trading partner in Africa. Let's get the latest now about the program today so far and what's coming up with our UK correspondent, Olly Barret, who's outside number 10 Downing Street in London, where there'll be some action in a short while. Olly, good afternoon. What's going to be happening there?
That's right, Dan. In a little over half an hour from now, the President will arrive on this famous street, Downing Street. He'll park a little bit over there and walk up the street towards that famous black door, number 10, at which he will be met by the UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. They will go in together and they will hold talks. They'll have lunch. They'll be in there for at least an hour or so together holding discussions, before which President Ramaphosa will then attend another event very nearby where we are now, which is to discuss trade ties in more detail. The UK-South Africa Business Forum, that will take place in a Foreign Office property just nearby here. But in a little over half an hour from now, as I say, the President arrives here in Downing Street for those key talks with UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. Already today, the President has been at the Francis Crick Institute, he's been at Kew Gardens as well, and the UK and South Africa have announced a number of deals to do with biodiversity, science, research, innovation, aimed at many things, but among them trying to protect the world against future pandemics, also protect the world against antibiotic resistance, that type of thing. A lot of collaboration already taking place between the UK and South Africa in the science and research sphere. We saw that during the COVID-19 pandemic happening a lot, and both countries say that there's more that they can do, more cooperation that can take place, more funding that can flow, and therefore more benefits that can come from that cooperation.
Yeah, I don't know how the visit is being seen so far. From where we are, it looks like it's been going pretty well. And the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, very confident about the table charging of opportunities and economic growth for South Africa.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things to watch really has been the use of language by Cyril Ramaphosa. When he addressed the joint session of the UK Parliament, he talked quite a lot about how he believes that wealthier countries need to contribute more to developing countries to deal with the effects of climate change. He talked in some depth about the complicated historical nature of the UK-South Africa relationship. When he was alongside the King at Buckingham Palace, he was perhaps a bit more diplomatic in some of the ways that he was talking, but those are clearly key issues for him. And when he gets to Downing Street as well, one of the things we know, because he says so, that he's going to talk about is trying to also improve and expand educational ties between the two countries. He referenced at that speech in Parliament some of these South African students studying in this country to get PhDs, for example, and saying he wanted to see much more of that, and saying that he would be raising that as an issue with Rishi Sunak. So we know a lot of what will be discussed here at Downing Street today, but also the issues around Ukraine likely to come up as well. You mentioned the idea of how the visit has been going so far. I think both countries think that actually it's been very successful so far. Everything's been going according to plan. The weather has mostly cooperated. It's not raining today in the way that it has been almost every day over the last 2 or 3 weeks here in the UK. The weather held as well at Horse Guards Parade for that important ceremony yesterday. And it is clear that both countries do see opportunities for greater collaboration, deepening ties. We felt a real warmth at the palace last night between President Ramaphosa and King Charles as well. Despite some of those complexities in the historical relationship between the two countries, it is clear that both countries feel that ties can be deepened and improved further going forward.
Yeah, and both countries are facing an economic crunch and energy crisis and the high cost of living. Just today here, Olly, in South Africa, we got the inflation figures. They are higher than expected for the period under review. And tomorrow, our central bank, the Reserve Bank, will be announcing its decision, or its quarterly decision of an interest rate hike. And we are expecting 100 basis points. So it's tough for both, I guess, countries at the moment.
That's right, Dan, and actually many of those issues that you mentioned are being experienced in both countries, in both economies at the moment, and that's part of the reason there's been such a significant focus on trade ties and doing more business together as part of this trip, because both countries feel that if you do develop trade ties and business links further, that you can mitigate some of the effects that are being felt in both countries' economies at the moment. Energy, infrastructure have been a key part of the arrangements that have been struck so far. And I'm sure in the words that we do hear from Rishi Sunak and President Ramaphosa later, I'm sure that economy will be front and centre of all of that. We expect to see them sitting down together inside Downing Street. We'll have a camera in there, we think, for that meeting when it takes place, so we'll try and get a sense of what the two say to us as their priorities as they get together for their talks.